Welcome once again to the program Transforming Lives One at a Time. I am your host, Dianne, and on this program we seek to find real solutions to real problems that we face in society. We get into any and every topic that affects the human experience. On today's program, we will be speaking about that drive to succeed. My guest today is Patricia Nicholson-Richards, a vibrant force in media and communications. Patricia is a seasoned television personality, social media coordinator, news presenter, and dynamic event host. With over 15 years' experience, she has honed her craft in journalism, public relations, and digital engagement, making a lasting impact in the media landscape. She holds an Associate of Applied Science in Journalism and Public Relations, a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication, and is set to graduate with her Master's in Marketing Management this year. Patricia, welcome to the program Transforming Lives One at a Time. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Well, you are no stranger to the cameras and the spotlight. And I have been following you on your recently launched program 116, which I must say is very innovative and the way it is presented. Just tell us a little bit about this project.
All right. Well, again, thank you for having me. Full circle moment.
Yes.
You know, if we know, we know.
Yes.
116. So I work at the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, and we work in the Communications Department. And we are charged with the responsibility of, one of our responsibilities is ensuring that the public is kept up to breast about what's happening in the Tobago House of Assembly. Okay. Usually, government information is tend to be very boring, and the general public, is not really much interested in it. So we were charged with the responsibility of finding a very innovative, fun, and engaging way to communicate government information to the general public. And our boss lady, Miss Avian Parks, came up with the idea of something very short, something very fun, something very innovative that the public would enjoy looking at.
Right.
And another colleague, Rena Allen, she came up with the name 116, 116 square miles.
Yes.
That's the Tobago size. And there we had 116, and then she approached me, our boss, Miss Avian Parks, Pat, I would like you to host 116. Pat, host 116?
Yes.
Okay. I am not usually reluctant to do anything. Of course, as being my boss, I had an obligation.
Right.
I followed through with it, and we did our first episode, which was well received, very short, very fun, very engaging.
Yes.
And the public, based on the feedback that we've been getting so far, they seem to be really loving 116.
Definitely.
A team effort by the department, and of course me being the face, and of course all the work that goes on in the background to have it edited and then pushed out into the public. Really beautiful team effort.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations to the entire team. I think you all are doing a fantastic job.
Yes.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
So, Patricia Nicholson-Richards, daughter of the soil. Just tell us a bit about your early years in growing up. What was your experience like?
Well, if you didn't know, I'm telling you, I grew up in the beautiful village of Black Rock. I spent most of my life, childhood into adult life, in Black Rock. I grew up with my grandparents. My mom left me at around 4 years old. She went to Trinidad to further her studies, to better herself. So she left me in the care of my grandmother and late grandfather. And I think my grandmother did an excellent job at raising me with sound morals, values, and in a Christian lifestyle. Yes. And that has shaped me into who I am for today. I give her 100% credit for the way in which she raised me with the values, the morals, the biblical teachings. And I grew up in a community that has a lot of mentors, and a lot of mentors that impacted my life. For instance, I was a member of the Black Rock Police Youth Club as a child. Okay. And one of the first leader of that youth club, Mr. Ulrich Duke, the late Ulrich Duke, who's the husband, was the husband of former Secretary Claudia Groom Duke.
Right.
He was a mentor, and he ensured that he kept me on a path that was very progressive, was humble. He saw potential in me, and he helped me to realize that potential as a child. BlackRock also has Mr. Kelvin Charles, a former chief secretary and a former presiding officer, who also is a mentor. He still is a mentor of mine. So I grew up in a community that has a lot of people who molded and impacted my life as well. So beautiful upbringing in my family, grandmother, grandfather, aunts, uncles, cousins. My mom too. I mean, she was in Trinidad studying and furthering her career, but she was present.
Okay.
You know, and so my upbringing, I would say, was I was able to be a child. I was a child. I was raised as a child.
Yes.
And I experienced things that children should experience, having fun, playing outside,
yes,
and so on. Of course, the studies were there, going to school, ensuring that you know your ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. And then moving on to high school life, and then becoming an adult. And yeah, life growing up was fun and filled with lots of valuable lessons.
Yes.
And I do appreciate the way in which I was brought up.
Yes, it brings me back to the thought that it takes a village
Yes.
to raise a child, and
Yes.
indeed,
Yes.
you are
That
a
was
product of that village coming together for the person that we see here today.
Certainly.
So the big question is, when did you know you wanted to get into journalism, and what propelled you to pursue this field? And of course, just before we came on, I was getting just a little idea of a story of a 13-year-old girl who said that she wanted to be a journalist. So I'm not sure if you know that person, but
You know, it's so interesting because I remember as a child, my grandfather, he would always buy newspapers. So from the village parlor in BlackRock, Miss Geraldine, the late Miss Geraldine, she had a parlor in BlackRock, and every day he would have his Newsday. I remember the papers vividly. He needed to get his Newsday, and he would read it when he received it and leave it there, and then I would take it, go into the bedroom, stand in front of the mirror, and I'm reading like if I read the news.
Right.
But you know, you're doing these things so innocently, in a sort of a naive way, not knowing that this is what your future would be like.
Wow.
You're just doing something because, hey, I enjoy seeing it on television and I'm doing it now.
Yes.
And so I think it started there. In fact, probably before that, because I remember my first year teacher, Mrs. Shirley Beard, telling me, Pat, you know, from since first year, you're talkative. You just talk. But one thing about the talk, talk and don't work.
Right.
You understand? So it was never talking and not knowing what to do.
Yes.
And that would always be on the report, talks too much in class.
Wow.
So I think it's from then I started yapping.
Yes.
And I guess as I got older, I found joy in reading, in expressing myself in public speaking. So in primary school, I entered a lot of competitions, reading competitions, choral speaking competitions, public speaking competitions, calypso competitions. Into high school, I was always one to volunteer to read aloud.
Okay.
To go up on stage and to represent the class if it was in the morning sessions at school.
Yes.
So I was always that kind of person. But funny enough, when I was preparing for CXC, I did not see journalism or communications in my future. I saw myself becoming a chef because I did food and nutrition, or a nutritionist, right?
Yes.
And I did all the subjects, the maths, the English, the food and nutrition, the chemistry, the biology and stuff. And I ended up in communications. I entered sixth form, UE sixth form, that's in Signal Hill. And I spent 1 year there. After the first year, I was like, this isn't for me. So I left, and during that break period, a friend of mine reached out to me and said, there's an opening at Tobago Channel 5. Are you interested? I said yes, because I was home doing nothing, and I knew that I would not be going back to sixth form.
Yes.
And so I sent my application, and I got called, and that's where my life as a journalist officially began at Tobago Channel 5.
Wow, that is so amazing.
Yes.
Well, just give our viewers a little insight on what the journey has been like for you thus far. We see you on television, and some persons may be of the view, this is just a walk in the park, man, just a bed of roses.
Oh, no. It's really not. So when I was at Tobago Channel, when I started at Tobago Channel 5, I started as a reporter. And not too long after, someone by the name of Dianne Mcletchie, I don't know if you know that person.
I wonder.
She saw potential in me, and I am forever grateful to you for realizing that potential and for helping me to hone that skill. Yes. And you just threw me into the water. Yes. And just told me swim. And swim I did.
Yes, you did.
It was not, it was challenging at first. I remember going on set very timid. Mm-hmm. But over a period of time, of course, I grew accustomed, and I started doing this thing properly.
Yes.
And then I worked at Tobago Channel 5 for about 3.5 years, and I left and I went on to, I think it was Nat Johnson Multimedia for a short period, doing the same communications.
Yes.
And then I got a call from TTT, well, back then was CTV, it's now TTT.
Right.
And they were interested in me. I didn't send any application or anything. They were just aware that, or they were told that Patricia is the person.
Yes.
And they did the interview with me, and literally the next day I was called to work at CTV, now TTT.
Right.
And that part was very challenging because I had to cover all of Tobago as the lone representative or lone journalist in Tobago for the national station. Right. So it became hectic for me, having to be in the know with all that's happening in Tobago, be here, there, and everywhere.
Of course.
Persons expecting you that when something happens, you're there, and you're there on time, real time. And so that became challenging. And another challenging aspect was, of course, you know, in life when you're progressing, there are always the people who may not be happy about that, or want to see you reach to your fullest potential, reach for the stars. So I dealt with a lot of negativity and criticism, harsh criticism at that. But I think my faith in God and knowing that I have a purpose,
of course,
that kept me going, and it has brought me to the point where I am today. I'm no longer at CTV. I'm at the Office of the Chief Secretary doing the 116, doing the social media management, and in my private capacity I host events and stuff like that. And I think where I started to where I am now, the setbacks, the challenges, they've brought me to where I am now, which is a very beautiful place. I am comfortable, happy, grateful for life experience.
And I am so very proud of you. I mean, I remember the earlies when I heard your voice. I said to myself, I said, this young lady, I can make her a presenter.
Yes.
And you did not disappoint. You did not disappoint.
I remember that so clearly. I said,
you did not disappoint.
What is that doing to me? But it was a really, when I look back, I always have you in memory, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been on television.
Wow.
You know, when I started doing the presenting, and then we also did a bit of live hosting at Tobago Channel 5 as well. And it's because of you, you know. There are other people who played a pivotal part in my life and stuff like that. But in terms of getting on camera, Dianne Mcletchie.
Wow. Well, I was very happy to be a part of that.
Yes.
Well, I know in many instances that people would just see the success stories. They will just see what you have accomplished to date. But truth be told, I am certain that there would have been times that you felt like giving up. Sometimes that you felt that kind of discouragement. Just tell us a little bit about that and how you were able to overcome these challenges.
Yes. There are so many challenges. I think juggling, because I became a mom at age 21, and I was working. Well, I wasn't working at the time, actually. I took a break and then started working at CTV. One of the challenges was juggling my baby and my demanding job, because we know journalism, how demanding it could be, and covering all of Tobago, that was demanding as well. But I had support, I must say. I had support from my grandmother, of course, again.
Of course.
Mom, and just the village that we spoke about earlier on. I had the support from them. And so even when I would be home late and not getting to spend enough time with my son, they were there to ensure that he got what he needed to get in my absence.
Yes.
Because again, journalism and covering Tobago, very demanding.
Very.
Another challenge, I think, was having to please everyone. I in journalism, sometimes you write a particular story, and then somebody not happy because you didn't take the side that, and I had to deal with that as well. And again, I go back to prayers and faith and asking for wisdom and guidance, and also knowing that I am doing what I'm doing from a place of integrity, objectivity, and wanting to really just help people in all of that, because a big part of me enjoying journalism was telling the stories of people who didn't have a platform to share their stories. So somebody would have an issue in their community, an issue in their home, something, and they would call on Pat. And I had a duty to share their stories. And sometimes you would end up in challenges where you share a story and somebody isn't pleased with the angle.
You step on some toes.
You understand? You step on some toes. But in all of that, I think I grew thick skin to it. Because in journalism, especially when you're dealing with the political side of things, you have to have thick skin. And that was another challenge, not being able to please everyone. But also one of my biggest challenges, again, I would say, was striving to be better than you were yesterday, and not receiving that support from people who you think would be your biggest cheerleaders, and that to me, because I am the type of person, if you are my, let's say, friend, we work together, colleague, whatever the case may be, and you start a business, I am the first person to purchase from you, to support you. If you're taking on a new role, I am there supporting you. And there were times I felt like I did not have that from people who, not necessarily family, but people who I thought would have been
in your corner.
They were literally just non-existent. And sometimes you'd hear the harsh criticism and stuff. But again, I would always say, trusting in God, having faith, knowing that you have a purpose, and doing what you're doing with integrity and objectively, that kept me going. My faith in Christ, if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would have been.
Definitely. It's so important, because many times, as you rightfully said, some of the people that you would have been there for, and you would expect, okay, this will be my biggest cheerleader, and sometimes they just go silent, and then you're wondering, you said, my God, when I thought I could have depended on, I couldn't. And it taught you to even become more reliant on the people who were there for you. And I always say, when people show you who they are, my sister Sandra, she resides in Canada, she always says, Dianne, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
Oh yes.
Believe them the first time. Well, this conversation is really going wonderful, but we have got to take a break. So at this time, we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. We are speaking with Patricia Nicholson-Richards. Stay with us.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters, and yes, windows. Plus a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program, Transforming Lives One at a Time. Well, just before the break, Patricia, we were talking about support systems. Yes. And I know that support systems are very critical to one's success, even as you juggle daily lives. I know you are a wife, a mother, a career woman. Just what does your support system look like? And how do you effectively bring that balance, ensuring that you don't become overwhelmed?
Right. From the get-go, I've had good support from family. So I would always credit my grandmother again.
Yes.
She's one of my biggest supporters, helpers. In my life now, as a married woman, I definitely have a supportive husband. Right. Through and through. If I have something to do, he will ensure that I have an easy time just getting ready to go do what I have to do.
Wonderful.
My children are taken care of. If I have somewhere to go or something to do, my mom is there. And my son, he's old enough, 10 years old. He doesn't need that much attention as my 2-year-old would need. So that's sort of a ease for me, you know. But I have my husband, my mom, my dad. He's very supportive as well. My grandmother. In terms of juggling and finding that balance, because I work at the Tobago House of Assembly. Yes. I also do news presenting at Tobago Updates. I am also going to school. I am completing my master's program, which is very demanding.
Wow.
What I do when I'm at work, I focus on work.
Okay.
When work is done,
that's it.
Yeah.
You will. Right.
Don't bring work home. No. I don't encourage that at all, because you would find yourself just going, and not having to spend time with family. When I do my news presenting, when I'm done, I grab my bag through the door.
Yes.
Right? And I make it a point to spend quality time with family. No matter how short the time is, I make it a point, especially for this 2025.
Yes.
2025, my priorities are God, my family, myself. Yes. Anything else could come after that. But it's never easy, because my day job, my 8 to 4, as they would say, is very time consuming.
Right. News
presenting is within itself a task. You have to always be prepared, makeup, hair, clothing. And then for school is very demanding. Sometimes I am listening to a class going on and heading to present on evenings.
Yes.
And when I'm leaving, the class is still in session because it doesn't finish until 8:30. So I'm back listening again on the way home.
Wow.
And then when I reach home, I'm sitting in the car just for that class to finish. When the class is done inside.
Yes.
When I'm inside, that's it. I try to shut everything out and focus on my family, which again, they're really important for me.
Priority. I like that. You have to put things in priority. I always say whatever is important to you, you will find the time for. And if we adopt that mentality, I think we'll be in a better position. Yes. Well, let's talk a bit about being a journalist, a communicator. What are some of the qualities a successful journalist you think a successful journalist should possess?
All right, first of all, you have to be a people person. You have to be able to interact with people. You have to be a people person.
Yes.
Efficient, because when you go out in the field and you gather your information, your who's, what, where, when, why, how's, and you come back, you have to be efficient enough to pull that together in an accurate way, reliable as well, and push that out for the newscast, especially if you're doing it today for today.
Yes.
You know, news is very demanding. So you have to be efficient. You have to be thick-skinned.
Yeah.
I spoke about that before.
Yes.
Because the criticism would come, and sometimes it's not all constructive.
Yes.
You know, so you have to be thick-skinned. You have to be humble as well. You have to be willing to learn. And you have to be teachable.
Yes.
Because you don't know everything. I didn't know everything when I didn't know everything
course.
when I started.
Yes.
And you taught me a lot. I give credit also to Miss Ayana Holder. She taught me a lot in journalism as well. And as I climbed the ladder, when I worked for CTV, Miss Sandra taught me a lot. So you have to be able to be teachable.
Yes.
And remain humble. So I would say those are some of the qualities: humility, being thick-skinned, being efficient, being reliable, being a people person. Yeah, and always wanting to help others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Well, I was about to ask, but I think you touched most, but I was still along your journey in terms of persons you would have interacted with, who would have impacted your life and catapulted you into your destiny. But I think you answered that as we went along.
You know,
or was there anyone
last
else?
night I was actually, I had a pen and I started making a list of people who I really need to credit for where I am today.
Yes.
It's not lengthy,
right?
But so that I would remember, I would try to list a couple. But if I didn't do everyone, I apologize in advance. But certainly, Miss Dianne Mcletchie, very much important person in my journey as a journalist. I would say Mr. Kelvin Charles, he saw potential in me from a very young age and mentored me. He's still a mentor of mine for today. I am really grateful to him for seeing the potential in me and for encouraging me to become my best self. The late Mr. Ulrich Duke, I mentioned him already.
Yes.
He was the president of the Black Rock Police Youth Club when I attended that youth club. He was he played a pivotal role in my success. My teachers in primary school, Miss Shirley Beard, Mrs. Bernadette Allam, in high school, Debbie Charles Jordan. There are so many. I also admire and appreciate Miss Avian Parks. She has been a mentor of mine and someone who I would call someone I admire.
Yes.
I would say I admire the way she carries herself, the way she does her communications, and she is really somebody that I look up to as well. There are so many others, mentors and people of inspiration.
Yes.
But I think those are some that really come to mind, and those are some at the forefront of my mind at this time.
Yes. Well, it's always so very good to say thanks.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Never be ungrateful.
That is the last thing. That is the last thing I will be. I am truly grateful.
Yes.
For the support, the mentorship, the guidance, and even in rooms where discussions are happening and somebody would say, yes, give that to Pat.
Yes.
Or I think Pat is the one to do that, because there are rooms where people say, oh no, but there are rooms where people call your name in the best of ways.
Of course.
And I am grateful.
That is so wonderful. Yeah. Well, Patricia, just shifting gears a bit. We know that we have a lot of issues facing us in society, and it is no secret, whether we believe it or not, we are in a crisis as it relates to the social landscape. I want us to delve in a bit into the importance of having proper role models and mentors, especially for our young people.
Yeah. I cannot underscore how important it is to have role models, to have people who you can look up to for guidance in the best of ways, because especially as it pertains to young women, a goal of mine is to have I don't know if to call it something where I could encourage young women. I don't know if to call it a mentorship class or group. I don't know what it is, but something for young women in particular, because I have observed that the guidance I think they should receive, it's not there.
Okay.
And even if there are opportunities for them to, such as courses, classes, sessions for them to be a part of, they're not encouraged enough in my opinion,
Yes, to take
be
it
a
up.
part of sessions and opportunities like those. So I had role models. There were people that I looked up to, people who mentored me.
Yes.
And though I grew up in a Christian household, but you know, as you grow older, you go to school, the influences
Yes,
are there.
yes.
And I wouldn't say that I was perfect and straitjacket. There were times when you were a little rebellious.
Yes.
You want to experience
Of
for
course,
yourself.
of course.
And some of those experiences burned me.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for mentors and people pulling you back on the right path,
Yes.
I don't know what would have been my life today. So mentors are extremely important, and positive role models, because you can have role models, but
of
they're not
course.
positive.
That's right. That's right.
So, but positive role models are very important, and so that is something that I want to tap into,
Yes.
probably in the not too distant future,
Yes.
where I have a community where we could encourage young women. Men need encouragement too, but I think
Right.
my focus and
Understood.
in terms of what I'm feeling in my spirit,
Yes.
young women need guidance.
Right.
Yeah.
That is very, very important. And I think that our parents don't really recognize enough
Yeah.
just how critical it is for us to align our children with positive role models and
Yeah.
mentors,
Yeah.
because it will shape the course of their life. It will shape how their life turn out, their destiny. So I think that is very, very important, and I applaud you on that initiative, and I
I
am
would
trusting
like to
that you're going to
start.
run with that. And of course,
Yes.
we can partner here on transforming lives one at a time.
Definitely.
Because we are about building and rebuilding homes, communities, and nations. So anywhere we can be of assistance, of course, let us know.
Oh, certainly.
Yes. Well, many times persons would say that based on where you grew up, your geographical location, the environment in which you live can have far-reaching effects on one's outcome. And that is so true.
Yes.
But I am not naive, and I know that the environment plays a critical part in one's development. But we have also seen persons coming from some of these so-called hotspots, and they come out and they are excellent, outstanding citizens, you know, who fought against the odds. I must make a difference. Yes. I would be different. You know, where does where you start determine where you end? Just wait on that.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. I would like to draw a reference to a very modern, real situation. It's happening, current situation actually, with young brother.
Yes.
The young people would know exactly who I'm talking about. He grew up in Sealarts, Trinidad.
Okay.
And we know that Sealarts is known for its the ills
Yes.
and so on. And today, I mean, he started off singing Trinidad music. That's music that I don't listen to. I will never endorse.
Right.
But I have seen him making a slant, a turn. He's turning into a different direction and a more positive direction. So I'm hearing the calypsos with great meaning, and I think he is a perfect example of where you start,
yes,
or the environment in which you were raised or born is not where you
will
have to end. And that's a real beautiful example. I really admire his growth, and I my perspective or my position on that is no. Where you start doesn't always have to be where you end up, especially if where you start isn't that great.
Yes.
If you lacked a lot of things in the beginning, if you were not fully supported, if you started on a track that wasn't too right, wasn't too good, you can always change direction. But you need to want that for yourself.
Yes.
You need to push and put yourselves in places and spaces that would encourage you. Again, we're talking about finding mentors,
yes,
that could take you into a space and a place that is different from what you would have grown up in if where you started isn't where you want to go.
Yes. And as you're speaking, my thoughts just went on the word purpose.
Yeah.
And many times we all have a purpose. When we were created, God placed a purpose within us.
Yes.
Things that we are supposed to do, things that we are supposed to accomplish, persons that we are supposed to assist.
Yeah.
And many times when persons don't get into or zero in on what their purpose is, many times someone else will suggest a purpose for you.
Yeah.
And that is what is happening, sadly, even with a lot of these gangs that we have. Persons want a place that they could call home. And many times when you are distracted and you don't find your own purpose, persons pull you into their space, and of course we see what is taking place now. It's a ripple effect.
Yes, and I think it's foundational. I mean, not everybody has the beautiful community to raise them, unfortunately. And if it is that we see potential in someone and we know that they do not have all the resources available to them, perhaps we can point them in the direction of finding the resources and getting them to a point where they're not on that negative trajectory, but they've done the about turn and they're looking upward in a more positive and fulfilling way. But I think family and how you were raised has a lot to do with that. Now I see from time to time parents not carrying out their responsibility and oftentimes leaving the sole responsibility of raising their kids up to teachers, up to society. And I don't think that that's the best approach. As a parent, you have a responsibility. Your primary responsibility
your child.
is to take care of your children and to ensure that they receive optimal care and that they are given or presented or provided with the opportunities for growth, for transformation, sound values and morals. We're not seeing that being instilled in young people anymore. Young people are telling you what they want, when they want, however they want, and I think that has a big part to do with family and upbringing.
Of course.
I would always credit my grandmother again for instilling biblical values, because as much as I listen to all the motivational speakers and the motivational quotes, I always go back to the Bible. And I always go back to praying and doing the introspection, and I got that sort of a grooming from my grandmother. She always instilled in me sound morals and values and living a Christian life, having faith and ensuring that God is always at the fore of what you're doing. So even if you stray a little bit, there is always something in the back of your mind.
Correct.
It's time to go back to faith, time to go back to the morals and the values that were instilled in you from a child. If young people have that now and we pay attention as parents in the first instance to where our children are going, what they are doing, the influences around them, then I think we should be better off. I mean, there's only so much you could do again as a parent, but I don't think we're doing enough.
I agree with what you're saying, because the end result, because in society right now what we are seeing being manifested is actually the end result of this child starting in the home. Sometimes when we were supposed to be disciplining the child, we are not doing it. We are making excuses for their behavior. They are bringing home things that doesn't belong to them, and we're not even asking a question.
We couldn't do
How
that.
can you bring home something that doesn't belong to you and mommy and daddy doesn't ask a question? So what happens is that as the child grows, they just of the opinion that, okay, this is the right, there's nothing wrong with this. And then they start bringing home other things. And then we have a problem. So what we are seeing now is years of neglect And I always believe that everything begins in the home. We want the teachers to be the mothers. We want society to be the mothers. But you have a responsibility in the home to take care of your children and to be able to provide not just food, shelter, and clothing, but every other thing that they need for their development. Because we are actually preparing these children to be someone else's spouse.
Let's not even go there.
Listen. No, that is what we are doing. So when we drop the ball on not being the kind of parents that we are supposed to, we are actually setting up our generation to fail. And we just can't do that. And we have to look into ourselves, ask a question, what am I doing? How is my parenting going? Look back, did I deal with this situation well? How did I speak to daddy in front of
the children?
Are they respecting me in the home? Because if you're not getting it in the home, don't expect to get it out. Trust me, you don't want to get me started. At this time, we're going to take another short break and we will be right back. Stay with us.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor, or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic, and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters, and yes, windows. Plus, a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. My guest today, Patricia Nicholson-Richards, a name that you know all too well. Well, Patricia, as you are aware, in our communities, we seem to have a gap between our youth and our middle age and seniors. How do you think we can bridge that gap to encourage? Because of course, our seniors, they have such a vast wealth of knowledge that we need to be able to take to the next generation and the next generations. What do you think we can do?
Well, for me for one, I enjoy interacting with senior people. The wealth of knowledge that they have, I think it's really important to have experienced people guide you.
Yes.
Right? In terms of bridging that gap, young people need to respect that the older folks, yes, they may not be technologically savvy as we are. Some of them struggling to even do the WhatsApp.
Right.
We can show them how to do that, and they can show us or teach us how to knead dough. How to make a nice little oil down. And we have a conversation around things like that, or while doing things like that. It's just a matter of respecting, of young people respecting that the older folks are more experienced. They have the knowledge. They have they've been through what we're going through.
Yes.
And for the older folk to also respect that young people, we know the technology.
Yes.
We know certain ways of life that you probably can't fight up with now.
Yes.
You need the guidance. You need the wisdom. You need the knowledge, and we can help each other. I don't think one could work without the other.
Right.
I think we need the experience. We need those who've been there before us to kind of help us to appreciate where we came from, and we also need the young people to show us where we're going, what's happening now, the importance of technology, and how it can make life easier. Yeah.
Right. And I also think that we need to be a little more intentional in our relationships.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we just leave it up to, maybe we might have a family day and I may bounce up a senior citizen that we can have a conversation.
I'm so glad that you spoke about the family day, because I think it's something that we need to encourage.
Yes.
I've been part of family days, and when you're done it, you feel good because you met a cousin who you haven't seen in life, or who you haven't seen in a long time, and you're able to build connections and just appreciate family, appreciate oh God, Tobago so small.
Yeah.
And oh God, I didn't know this one was my cousin.
Right.
You know, we need to know these things. So I think family days and outings, it doesn't have to be anything big. It could be a nice day at the beach.
Yes.
That you call up your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, and we go and we sit down and we talk, we laugh, we have fun.
Right.
That kind of thing. I used to be a part of that long time. I mean, our family now, at Christmas time, we have a nice lunch and everybody brings
together,
something and we eat and we talk and we have a good time. And I think that's one way that my grandmother used to ensure that the family remains close knit. Because young people now, everybody, they have their personal life, who married, who live away, who, you know, so there has to be something that brings us together,
of course,
so that we can maintain that sort of community, that family.
That community spirit. Because I was talking to a gentleman and he's a part of community councils. And I was telling him, I said, these community councils, I think we need to have more events. Sometimes you go, you have meetings. Yes, you might have one probably for Easter, and then you'll have a cake sale for Christmas. But I think they should be a little more proactive in having more events, so that we could bring out families together and be more intentional to build that gap, to bridge that gap. You know, so that persons would know, okay, right, I didn't know Granny knew about what do they call it? Egg and spoon race.
Right, yes.
Or the sack, the bag sack thingy. And so many different things we could do in order to bring that kind of synergy and encourage.
Yeah, and I think we tend to forget the seniors, and I think sometimes they feel left out and lonely, and you know, young people doing the thing and they're not involving me, you know, and I think that's kind of sad. So I think we also need to involve them in a lot more activities. I know that there are groups in Tobago that have the senior citizens day and stuff like that. That is something that I admire and I think should be encouraged as well, so that young people and the older folks could bond.
Of course,
we need that.
That is so important. Well, Patricia, as we begin to bring the curtains down, what is one key takeaway you would like our viewers to take from this interview?
To realize your fullest potential. As you rightfully said, we all have a purpose. It is important to find what your purpose is, and not for somebody to drag you into something that you really shouldn't be a part of. We all have a purpose, and you are important, I am important, we are important, and whatever you're here to do is absolutely needed. And do not allow anyone or anything to derail you from your purpose in life. That is one of my biggest takeaways from this interview.
Yes, wonderful. Well, I would like you to speak to someone today, and of course you could speak into the camera, maybe a young person or not so young person who maybe has that passion for pursuing mass communication, but they might be a bit timid, you know, a bit afraid, a bit, you know, not sure. I'm wondering. Maybe their self-esteem is low. Or they started and for some reason they just gave up. I want you to speak to that person. How can they get that drive again?
I would say focus. It's not easy. Nothing in life, once that you want to achieve, it doesn't come easy. If you want to build a house, you want to buy a car, you want to make a next career move, it's never easy. It's never without its fair share of challenges. But you have to know that this is what I want. This is really the area or the thing I want to do, and do some introspection. Introspection is so important.
Yes.
Sit down in your thoughts and really put pen to paper as well. And some people journal. Is this what I really want for my life? And if it is this thing I want for my life, I need to focus. I need to get up and I need to get going. You know, there are so many distractions and so many naysayers and those who would want to critique. I've been there.
Yes.
But you have to maintain focus. This is what I want. This is what I'm going after. Blinders on.
Yes.
Let's go. You know, the setbacks would come.
Yes.
And the saying is, every setback is an opportunity for a greater comeback.
Oh, yeah.
I know that all too well. Don't take setbacks as a reason to just give up. I mean, you will get tired in life. You know, some things are up, down every day, and sometimes you're pushing to get something and it's not happening for you at that point in time or when you want it to happen. That's not a sign to give up. It's probably a sign to go back to the drawing board and come again, or to take a break. But taking a break when you're tired, when you're exhausted, doesn't necessarily mean giving up on your dreams. So that's my message to anybody out there wanting to enter into the field of journalism, or any field for that matter. Stay focused. The challenges would come, but the opportunities are there for you to grab. Yeah,
definitely. And stay away from negative people.
Oh, negative vibes, negative people. We don't do that around here.
No. Negative, because it's amazing. Someone could tell you one thing, and it could just derail you. It could set you back 10 years.
Tell me.
Sometimes you might want to start a business, and you talk to the wrong person, and they tell you, but nobody in your family ever started a business like that. What you trying to play?
Or somebody doing that already. Find something else. They're doing it already. You could offer something different. There are so many journalists around the world.
Yes.
Right? But there's not a journalist as Patricia Nicholson-Richards.
Of course.
You know, so you always have to be aware and be mindful of the people around you, especially, you know, the negative vibes. And sometimes it's so subtle. They come with it so subtle. I don't think you should do that. If that is what you want to achieve, focus.
Yes.
I like that word, focus.
Yeah, definitely. I remember one, I think it was a pastor that said, you don't have to believe in my dream.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to look like it's coming together for it to come together.
Yes.
And that is so important. Because sometimes when you think about your journey and you think about your goals and where you are heading, sometimes things happen between the beginning and the end that if you're really not focused on where you're going, you can be distracted and it could change the whole course of your destiny. So sometimes things may not appear like it is working out.
Oh yes.
But when you when you really analyze everything, you realize that you had a setback, as you said. Sometimes you have to have a setback. To make a comeback. Yes, definitely. Well, Patricia, I would like to thank you so much for joining me here today on Transforming Lives One at a Time. And certainly you are transforming lives one at a time in your sphere of influence. I am indeed so very proud of you and your accomplishments. So continue to play your part. Continue to be that role model and that mentor that you would be able to make an impact, a lasting impact on the lives of the people that you come into contact with. So I want to wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and of course you continue to shine.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, viewers, that's all the time we have for today. I'm your host, Dianne, and you can feel free to check out our Facebook page, Transforming Lives One at a Time, and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel, same handle, Transforming Lives One at a Time. As usual, I leave you with the definition of transformation, which is an internal shift that brings you into alignment with your fullest potential. Hey, we've got this. See you next time.